Okay, well, Vivian, you ready to get going? You ready to start?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So, welcome everybody. This is the final installment in our series here, the CCNS Zwift How-To series. So we're calling this 301, and this is becoming competitive. So, I believe everybody that's on the line knows me. I'm Hunter Pronovo, Coach Hunter Pronovo. Been with CCNS for 6 years. Head coach Aiden had some family appointments that he had to take care of tonight, so it's going to be me and Coach Vivian, who is also on the line. He's been with the company for going on a year now. Vivian, introduce yourself. You want to give a couple quick sentences about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Hunter said, I'm Coach Vivian, and I've been with CCNS for, I think it's like exactly a year now, actually. It's been a great experience. I've been racing my bike since I was 14 years old, and I got lucky enough to do it at the pro level in the U.S., which is a great experience. I'm actually currently at Boston University, getting my undergrad degree right now. That's basically it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, Coach Vivian. Yeah, Vivian's great with. Vivian's definitely on the leading edge of the data side of things. Definitely, whenever we want numbers crunched, we go to Vivian. So this 301 topic and kind of taking things into Zwift Power and really getting into the numbers, right up his alley. So it's good that he's jumping in with us, and he's definitely going to spend some time talking about some next level stuff on ZwiftPower.com. So just moving on through here. Anybody who has signed on to or was part of our previous clinics will know what this slide is all about. And we put it here because it really is it's kind of like our guiding beacon in some sort of way. Whenever we're setting goals for athletes, or whenever we're establishing what that next step for somebody might be, we kind of refer to this, and we want to make sure that everybody is progressing in the right sequence, so to speak. And we put it here because what's the goal? The goal is to use Zwift to get faster, and not just to pass time in the winters. It's not just an alternative to use when it's raining out, but we're actually going to use it as a tool to get faster for both Zwift racing and then for riding in real life, and it absolutely can be that. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't look at it as in that kind of sense. They look at it more as like that diversion to use when honestly they can't get outside, and which is fine. But we're hoping that everybody can step up their game and take it to the next level. Going through these clinics. So just a couple of assumptions here that we're looking at. So, and this is really almost like a review or a recap of the 101 or the 201s, the clinics we did last week. But basically, it's about, obviously everybody here has used Zwift and we're comfortable using Zwift. We don't need to talk about like the power up icons and what they do. Maybe we'll talk about like when to use them kind of scenarios, but we know what's going on in Zwift. We have used the companion app for finding events, signing up for events, filtering events, that kind of thing. We went over that in the last week. We are familiar with, and maybe we've even been inspired to use Discord a little bit, hopefully. We went over that last week as well, talking about how the community is what makes Zwift so cool and makes it really unique and special, and using Discord to talk to text and to actually like communicate with riders as they were just right there is something special. And then obviously we're assuming that everybody here has had some Zwift race experience, some experience with Zwift Power, so that when we start to really get into these next level techniques and tips, you guys will be able to, the light bulbs will go off, and you guys will be able to say, oh yeah, okay, I've seen that. I don't know what I'd ever do with that, but okay, bam, now I know. Or maybe as we talk about the race thing, we're going to talk about, yeah, I've seen my avatar get into an aero tuck, but like what's that? So we're going to talk about, these are the assumptions that we've put out here, but I think everybody here is pretty safe on all of these. Let's see. I'm seeing a chat. I'm seeing a message in here. Would like to have no volume. Just make sure that for everybody, obviously you don't need to call in. You just need to be using the Join Me app and just make sure your volume is set appropriately on your computer. There are call-in options. You can call in to receive the audio by phone. It's just that there's no back and forth audio. So, all right. So moving on. So when we think about taking Zwift and really making it a tool that we're going to use to get faster, both in Zwift and in real life, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about Zwift Power, and we're going to kind of break things down into what we're seeing here, extrinsic goals and then intrinsic goals. And another way of putting this is, you've probably all heard the phrase outcome goals versus process goals, and it's basically the same thing. So an outcome goal or an extrinsic goal would be how you finish in a race. So we're going to set a goal. We've never broken the top 10 in a race. Is it right to assume that in the next race we're going to do, we're going to get onto the podium? I mean, that might be a bit of a stretch, but we're going to look at the race ranking features in Zwift Power to say, all right, my outcome goal here, or my extrinsic goal is, I've never finished better than 14th. So for this race, can I finish in 10th? And then we're going to talk about how to actually use the numbers and the data reporting from Zwift Power to actually determine whether or not that's a good goal, and then actually so you can go forth and hit it. Just enough so that you're reaching for these goals, but obviously reasonable so that you can get them. And then intrinsic goals, or what a lot of times we might refer to as process goals, are the things that we can do on the way to those outcome goals. So the outcome goal might be, all right, I'm going to crack the top 10 in this race. But really, we don't have absolute control over that. We can try our best, and even if we nailed everything, we just simply might not get it because there might be a lot of really strong riders that day. And this is applicable to racing and riding in the real world as well. But the point is, we do have control over those process goals, and part of what makes Zwift Power so powerful is it really breaks down like you as a cyclist, and how your strengths and your weaknesses, and where you can get better, when you got better, and where you got better in Zwift. And so that, following logic might say, all right, well, if I set a 20-minute power on this route or on this climb back 2 months ago, and my process goal is to set a new 20-minute power, then maybe I need to seek out that course or that route, knowing what I did previously and knowing exactly what I need to do to set a new PR in this case, which would be a process goal. Vivian, do you have anything to add before I move on from this slide?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, I would say that, to be honest, Zwift Power is probably one of the most in-depth tools that are accessible to the general public. Like, as in, you can literally see everyone's data, like, for miles and miles and miles, which you couldn't do. Like, there's no other platform that that kind of puts it up on a screen right there for you, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good point. I used to, I mean, maybe I'm a little old school in that, I try to, sometimes I'm a little guarded with, data, and when Strava came out, I was like, do I really want to be putting all this stuff up on Strava kind of thing? But yeah, you really have no choice if you want to be competitive and part of the Zwift Power community. Yeah, it's all out there to see, and it's definitely unique in that, like Vivian said, and you just have to embrace it. You gotta roll with it, and if you do embrace and run with it, there's something oddly reassuring about the fact that everybody's data is out there, and it just becomes something that is like you become much more objective about it, and maybe a little less like emotionally attached to. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty here, using Zwift Power. So we're going to talk about race rankings. We're going to talk about Z points and what those are and how to use them. And we're going to talk about peak power values and then the strength of the field. So with that, I'm going to see here. I'm going to switch over. I'm going to share. Let me just quickly handle this. Because I want to share with you guys what I will typically do when I'm signing on to Zwift Power, and this will give you some inspiration, perhaps. So, Vivian, you can see now my browser window.
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm just clicking over to Zwift Power, and you can see that, Vivian, it's still coming in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So when I'm from the top, when I'm logging into Zwift Power and I'm planning out my week of intensity, so to speak, and the events that I'm going to do, what I will do is I'm going to click on events, and I am going to, the first thing I do is I click filter, and I always go to 7 days out because 3 days just isn't enough. And if I know, for instance, that I'm going to be doing the Data Day race, which is a race that we usually do, I'll search that out. I'll click on it. The issue with clicking this right now, there's not going to be that many riders, and in fact, there's not really any. So let's back it out and let's pretend that I was doing a race. Let's see about. Let's say I was going to do this Tour for All stage right here, stage 2, the group ride. So what I typically do is the first thing I do is I go in and this is actually results. Sorry, backing out here. Events. There's so many of these Tour for All stage. Okay, here we go. Crit City race. Why am I getting just? Oh, I gotta click on results. Sorry, important detail. All right, let's pretend I'm planning on doing this. Why am I getting? Sorry, guys, bear with me here. Why am I seeing, Vivian, am I doing something wrong here? Why am I looking at, I should be able to click on any of these, but for some reason it's pulling up just results. If I click on.
Yeah, that is strange.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay, I just wasn't going down for enough. So this race is happening 7:05. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the rank, and I'm going to see where everybody's rank is that's currently signed up. So if I'm setting a goal for myself in this race, I know that my ranking is somewhere around these two guys right here, and maybe I'll just take a quick moment to talk about that. I'm going to go up into my profile, and obviously all of this data is right here with my profile here. So my race ranking is right here. Just in case you guys aren't aware, but you can click the info tab here and see what events and what score makes up my best 5, and the average of those is my race. Yeah.
I think your screen probably froze here. It looks like because you're still on this sign ups for the. Okay, well now it just flipped to your profile page.
Okay, here. Why don't are you on Zwift Power right now, Vivian?
I am, yeah.
Here, let me pass it on to you, and then you can take that.
All right. So you can see my screen, I'm guessing.
Yep. So yeah. So why don't we talk about what makes up somebody's ranking? And
yep.
You use my profile as an example, or as yours, like looking at the past results and how that turns into. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's my Zwift profile. If anyone doesn't know how to get to it, you just click on this, kind of profile image or drop down menu on the upper right hand side of Zwift Power, and then it's right there for you, Zwift profile. And then it brings you up to this page with basically, like a ton of kind of analytical info. We have power values over here, which are great. Then we have race ranking, which is what we're going to dive into in a second. Your actual category on Zwift, sorry. And, country, what team you're a part of, and then, more power stuff and age. And then these are all your results. So there's a couple of things that go into the kind of like the algorithm, I guess you could say, for this race ranking. So the first of these are that they take your 5 best race results. And I think it's pretty difficult to see on the share screen, but like Zwift Power actually bolds these for you in the results tab right here. So for me, it's this Saturday Trace race. I also have this Crit City, so on and so. You can actually also see it by which ones have this gain, which is basically the improvement of my race ranking after each race. But anyway, so Zwift basically takes these kind of best results ranking, and then takes the average of those, and then kind of spits it out right here, and then it ranks you by it. Now, what actually goes into this, like kind of calculation, is first of all the race quality, and that's based on the average best 5 riders in the top 10. How did they finish? And then it's multiplied by 0.9. We don't really need to care about why they multiplied by 0.9. It's just important to know that, you're kind of getting gauged off the best 5 riders that were in the top 10. And then there's also this thing, which is race quality, right? And that basically kind of is an assessment of how strong the field is.
Are you actually, and then, Vivian, are you actually on that right now? Because it looks like, okay, there you go. It looked like your screen might have frozen for a bit. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So
do you want to take us through how we would let's make believe like we're a C racer, kind of mid pack kind of thing. How would we find that strength of field?
Right. So essentially I think probably the best practice I would say is using your own race ranking to kind of figure out where you stand in a certain field. So let's just take note that my race ranking for my profile is 236.38. Then, as Hunter was doing before, I would go to events, and then Hunter likes to click on this filter, and then there's also this 7 days out, because I want to, I kind of want to know in advance what I'm going to do. And then we can just take, let's try to find one year that has a lot of riders. So by the way, I don't know if you guys can see this because sometimes it's a little blocked off by the bubbles on the right-hand side, but all the way to the right in kind of this menu, there's this flag with a number next to it. And that number kind of it tells you how many riders finished the race. So
the last time that race took place.
Exactly. So for this Crit City race right here, 65 people did it last week. So, and from there you can kind of gauge, if it's a good ride to take part in, because the whole point of this, right, is to connect with other people, have fun. You don't want to kind of be riding alone or with just 10 people when you could be riding with a bunch more. So let's just pick this Crit City race right here. And from here,
now you got the results again. maybe Zwift Power is running. Maybe it's running behind.
Yeah, it definitely looks like. All right, let's pick another one.
Because that race should have started. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let's pick one that's way out. So this, let's see. There's 81 that did. It's a training ride. Yeah, I think Zwift Power is definitely running behind. So,
you've got the USA Cycling Race League there.
Yeah, here. Yep, 8:45 p.m. Yep. So let's pick this one. There we go. All right, that's better. Okay. So, and you can still see this kind of like.
Yep. Go for it. Yep.
Great. All right. So now we have a couple of things, right? We have the actual category of riders, as you can probably tell, AAA, the rider name, and then, a bunch of data that they kind of have listed here. So in terms of race ranking, what I would do is I would come up to this rank tab, and then I would click on it. And that would tell me who the best ranked rider is, right? Who has the lowest points. Your points, they start at 600, it's kind of the minimum, and then you build that up slowly as you get more and more races in. So in this case, this is a really, really strong field, as you could probably tell, with 130.42 as the top guy. And I would probably filter in right around here. Unfortunately, there's no number, but that's maybe in the top 20, top 15 or something. So, right off the bat, I kind of have a good gauge of where I stand, based on past race results. Now bear in mind that this is just race results, so there's a couple of limitations to this, but nonetheless, it's still a good kind of gauge of where do I stand and where should I expect to finish when I'm choosing a race. Yeah, anything to add, Hunter, that you typically do when you come to these Who's Reg pages or picking an event or anything like that?
Yeah, that is what I go for. That is what I look at, and then you can also obviously join the event. There's a neat link so that as you're looking at this event, you've said, all right, I've decided that I'm going to do this event. You can actually just that link there in yellow takes you right to Zwift.com. You can sign up for the race there, or obviously you can use the companion app if you want to use that as well. So that's how we use the race rankings. And then that page is important too, because if you scroll to the top of that, Vivian, you get some very important information there. You're obviously seeing the course profile. If I want to get that in more detail, what I'll just do is I'll just highlight the route name, which in this case is Out and Back Again. I'll highlight it, do a Google search, and right away, typically the top results there are ZwiftInsider.com, and it's going to show you right there. ZwiftInsider.com is going to give you some more details on that course. so that you know exactly what you're up against when you start that race.
Yep.
So sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there, Vivian, going on to the site there. What about Z points? So Z points are another way to kind of see where you fit within the Zwift community. Obviously, we've got the race ranking, but then Z points is an entirely different way that kind of takes race rankings as part of it, but there's other things that go into Z points. Vivian?
Yep, exactly. So this is where you can totally take advantage of, and it's a nice, to be honest, it's a nice addition that they made. For people that it's pretty, as we all come through that pyramid that we talked about at the beginning, it's kind of easy to think, well, what if I haven't raced that much? Like, what if I haven't done 5 races? Well, then, you're definitely going to be at a disadvantage, and these race rankings might not be, that accurate for you. So what you can do in that case is kind of look at your Zwift points. So to do that, you actually go to this rankings tab at the top of Zwift Power, click on it, and then there's a bunch of different stuff you can do. There's individual. This is actually the race ranking as well, where you can see everyone that's registered on Zwift Power. And then there's this Z points tab, which is what we're referring to. So if you click on that, it'll bring up this menu again with this is everyone that's registered on Zwift. And I actually went through this earlier, and I think I'm on like page 92 or something. But anyway, it's not that important, but it's something like that.
But you can't. This is where being part of a team is helpful, because if you wanted to break it down even more, you could look at it by team. But sorry, just go ahead, keep going.
Yep. So basically, the reason this is kind of superior to the race ranking is because it's actually broken down into 3 different kind of equally weighted categories, we'll call them. So the first one, and you can actually see these right here, and you'll notice that the result here is like the equivalent of adding all these 3. So the first of these is actually the segments. So this basically, for whatever race you've done, it takes the fastest 3 times on, the segments that you completed in that race. And then it compares.
You want to quickly show from the segments drop down what we're talking about, because everybody's going to look at those and be able to see. Oh yeah, okay, so that's a segment. Yeah.
These are all the segments on Zwift. So basically, it's the top 3 of these that you did in a race, and then it has an algorithm that we don't need to get into because it's just too complicated, and we can start questioning all we want. But it basically compares you to the average times of everyone that's done that segment for the last 90 days. And then it comes up with a way to distribute points across those time frames. So that's the segments tab. Then there's the power. And the power is based off both your like absolute watts, so as in, okay, I can do, 250 watts for 20 minutes. And then it's also based on the watts per kilo that you can do. And so basically it attributes points to your 1, 5, and 20-minute powers. And all of these categories are capped at 600 points, so we don't have, anyone ridiculous that maybe had like some data spikes in their files that kind of get a superior ranking to everyone because of this. And then the last one is the racing category, and again, like, unfortunately, this one is also weighted by like your race rank, which is what we looked at earlier, and it uses that in a different calculation again. But I think the main one to focus on really is the power. And again, you can actually click on these tabs and see who actually has the best power. So, for example, here's the worst. So Trevor O'Donnell is 1487 points, okay? So, and then the best is these guys. And you actually notice that in some of these cases, they won't even have segment scores because they just haven't raced enough, stuff like that, or they'll have really low segment scores compared to, their power scores. So especially in the context of a team, I would say when you haven't raced that much, I would definitely like suggest kind of looking at the power on the Z points more than anything else.
Yeah, it gives another way of looking at your own personal data within the entire ecosphere, so to speak, and
exactly.
And yeah, it's a good tool for that.
Yep.
So Vivian, if we went back to your profile, so
Yep,
say we've got a racer that is like, all right, well, I'm going to get some more Z points, but I'm pretty sure I've maxed out my 5-minute power. You know, where like if you had to improve your Z points in a way based on your power, what would you target? Like, what kind of effort would you target? Based on where you are strong right now.
Right. So I like personally, I mean, this 1 minute for me, like, and this is kind of based a little bit off knowing what I've done in the past, but that 1 minute for me, I definitely think I could improve, by quite a bit. So you know, I guess you kind of want to look at, and you kind of want to look at especially efforts, and you can just do this based off memory, right? Like, oh, I haven't done any really hard 15-second or 1 minute efforts like when I'm riding on Zwift. So, you know, you can totally take advantage of that to kind of give your Z points a boost.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say is you know, if you're one of these people that haven't raced that much, just start racing. You know, immerse yourself in the community, register from some races, and have some fun. And I think automatically, you know, you'll just start seeing better points that way. I think those are really the two that I would target.
Yep. So while you're sharing your screen successfully there on Zwift Power, why don't we take them into the live feed of a race? And everybody bear with us. It might take a moment for Vivian to find an appropriate race with a good enough field that's going on right at this minute. But this is another really interesting tool with Zwift Power that I bet most of you in attendance haven't used, but it's actually a really cool thing to have going. If you've got the luxury of a pretty decent sized screen, or maybe even a second screen, having this going as you personally are racing is really, really cool. So let's see, that race started at 6:30, so it should be going on 39 kilometers yet.
We'll just click live tab here, and
that looks like it might be a chase race of some sort, or because there's something in beta there that might be a new feature there. But what we want to point out here with this is, you know, this is a live race going on in Zwift right now, and the course profile in its entirety is there. You can see exactly where everybody is in relation to, if you scroll down, you can see exactly who's in the lead right now. The far right-hand side of that, you can see how the peloton is maybe shaped. You can see that right now it looks like there's 2 riders off the front. There's another 6 riders chasing. This is actually pretty cool and very helpful. And even one thing that this is really helpful for, when you're racing in Zwift, depending on the course that you're doing and the number of laps that you're doing, a lot of times that map in the upper right-hand corner of the screen doesn't really give you an idea of what's coming up next. You know, if you're on a very long lap, yeah, you can see the hills as they're coming up. But if you're doing a one lap multiple times, you're only going to see a small section of that in that map. But here, if you're actually using this as you're racing, you can see your progress through the entire race, all of the laps, and you'll know exactly where the climbs are coming, as you'll know exactly when you're maybe halfway between, you know, climb 1 to climb 2, and you can plan accordingly. So I wanted to make sure that people saw this. And anything else to add to that, Vivian?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. And I think, like, if you don't want to go through I don't want to say hassle, but like if you if you want to take your way slowly into stuff like this, I think regardless of if you're going to use this live feature, going out and actually looking at what course you're going to race on in like a visual way where you actually have this elevation profile kind of mapped out for you is definitely like in your best interest for sure.
Yep. And then actually think about something else. If you scroll down there into the actual race feed and to see what how the race is panning out here.
Right.
So if you were, let's just say, if you were in that second group there, the 6 riders chasing down those 2.
Absolutely.
Say you're using this screen, you're racing those 6 guys, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, we're not going to catch those 2 leaders. How am I gonna make sure that I'm the first guy out of this group of 6 to win here? How am I going to win this group sprint? You can look right there. You could see the best 15-second power out of these 6 guys who are Category C riders. It looks like is Krishna there at 7.9. Right? Yeah. Right. So right then and there, you've got a little bit of an inside line as far as who's got the best sprint in this group. If Krishna goes off the front with a little bit of an attack, you might be like, you probably say, all right, he's just trying to whittle us down. That is definitely not his strategy to win this race because he's got a good sprint. He's definitely going to be sitting in.
Exactly.
But whereas somebody like a strong 20-minute power like Jared or Krishna as well, but if Jared goes off the front, you might have to say, oh wow, this guy's a girl has got a really good 20-minute power. They might be able to power a breakaway all the way to the end. So.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And I think at the same time, it goes in the opposite direction that you can totally gauge whether you need to worry about attacks or not. Right. Kind of as you were saying. Just if someone's holding like 6 watts per kilo and you just take a glance at this and see what their 20-minute is right up here, you're going to go, oh, there's no way you can hold that, so I don't need to chase that down. So it definitely like super useful tool that we really don't have access to in kind of, races kind of outdoors, I guess.
Yeah, and we get when we're looking at the start list of an event on Zwift Power, we get a sense of this. I mean, we sometimes we look at it and we only see like the really strong numbers, and we might think to ourselves, oh my goodness, how am I going to beat this guy? He's got a 20-minute power of this, he's got a 5th sprint of this, so on and so forth. But as the race actually unfolds, especially if it maybe is a little bit longer, using a tool like this, we really get to distill things down into the current situation, and it can serve as a good motivator to get the best possible performance out for ourselves. So definitely try and put that into use if you've got the screen real estate or a second screen that you could have this running. You just got to realize that it updates, as you can see there. It times it down. It's not constantly updating it, but it updates it every 20 or 30 seconds. So it's generally enough to really keep a good track of where the race is going. So let me see. I'm going to reclaim presenter role here, Vivian. Thank you very much for that. And then I'm going to just go into. So you guys are looking back at my PowerPoint here.
Yep, looks good.
Yep. So we talked about race rankings, Z points, peak power values, and then strength of field. So tips and hacks with our remaining time here. We're just going to go through a bunch of these, and we're going to share our experience and our tips for you guys as far as these things are concerned. And a lot of you competed in the Zwift Omnium a few weeks ago, and we put Vivian in charge of doing the research as far as like what. Because up to that point, we hadn't really used like the time trial bikes in Zwift all that much because we were all about doing the mass start races. So we all wanted to know, all right, time trial bikes. Vivian, what do we need? So Vivian went out and did a lot of the research, and not that we're going to just talk about time trial bikes here, but Vivian, do you want to give a good overview on how do we choose the right bike and wheels?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the, I guess, like super inefficient way to do it, which would be to actually log on to Zwift, like open the app and then go to the drop shop, and then kind of filter through every single category. But there's like literally like almost 100 options to choose from if you're considering like all the frames and all the wheels that you could use. So you definitely don't want to do that. Luckily, since Zwift is kind of this huge community, and it's really kind of this community of nerds that like love to kind of look at data, both power wise and speed wise. You can literally do Google searches of, for example, fastest TT bike on Zwift. And, the second you look that up, I think probably the first result is going to be Zwift Insider that actually did test across, every circuit that they could. So, hilly, flat, maybe rolling, stuff like that. So, definitely recommend that's the way to do it, especially since like I don't know if everyone's got experience with picking their bikes and wheels, but it's actually a star rated system on Zwift. So I think the most you can get is 3 or 4 stars, something like that. But the problem is that there's like 10 different frames that have the most amount of stars, but there still are differences between how fast they are. It's just, more subtle, and Zwift doesn't really tell you that. So consulting those resources is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, ZwiftInsider.com is just, if you're thinking about, okay, I've got this race up to Zwift, I want a light frame, I want the best wheels, the lightest wheels, you might be looking at the choices between two. Just realize that there are differences, even though both of those frames might have 4 stars. Go to ZwiftInsider.com, figure out the right combination. So as far as, say you've got this garage full of bikes, and you're just trying to decide, all right, I've got a flat to rolling race, I've got a hill climb race, what do I choose and what do I use? I'll just share with you my personal preferences. Typically, I've got the Zwift Tron bike, which is pretty fast across lots of different settings. So I'll typically use that probably 80% of the time. If there's a race with a lot of climbing, then I've got the lightest frame, and honestly, I think I go with the 404s for the wheels because they have the best combination of aerodynamics for when you're rolling at speed, which is obviously still a big part of Zwift, but then they also have the lightness that you might want going uphill. So if you've got a hill climbing race, don't just go for the lightest stuff, because aerodynamics play a huge role in equipment and how your equipment makes you faster. So, any tips for managing the start of a Zwift race, Vivian? Give us anything you want to. What's your best tip there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, especially when you're doing events with a lot of people at the start, showing up early is definitely in your best interest. And then I'd say once you kind of get within maybe 5 or 10 seconds of the start, you kind of want to anticipate that the first minute is usually all out. So I would say start ramping up your power substantially at that time. And you'll come out of that way better than if you like slowly ramp it up through the first minute, because it's always really, really, really fast in that first section.
Yep. I typically will, with about 2 or 3 seconds to go, I'll slam on the pedals pretty hard, and if it's hard enough, or if the field is, depending on the field, I might find myself out in the very front, and that's okay until I get to 25 miles an hour. Once I get to sometimes 23, 25 miles an hour, I know that the draft effect is going to be quite large. So at that point, I will sit up a little bit, and I'll let a few guys. I'm still pushing on the pedals for sure, but at that point, I'm letting guys pass me so that I can pick up the Zwift draft and go from there. So, if you hammer right out of the gate, that's totally fine, but you just gotta. It's not good to be at the very, very front if you're going very, very fast, because guess what? To maintain that position takes a lot of power. So while you're accelerating from 0 up to 20, 25 miles an hour, totally fine. But once you get up to that speed, don't be afraid to let some guys or girls come around you. And so long as you're not dropping like a rock through the field, you will you will be able to ease off the pedals quite a bit, stay in that group, and then from there, depending on what it takes to maintain that position, you can determine how you're going to continue managing the start of the race. Because like Vivian said, it's not just a minute or two. It could be sometimes 4, 5, 6 minutes where the pace is pretty bonkers. Power-ups, when to use each power-up. I mean, I think if anybody has any questions about, Sean put in a question about being at the front of the line make a significant difference. That's actually a really good question, Sean. We'll handle that one at the end of the webinar here. But if anybody has any specific questions about power-ups and when to use them, let's take care of that in the chat box so that we don't go over some of the more basic stuff that probably most of us realize. We talked about a little bit about the mastering the 3-second delay here, and that's definitely huge, because if you're not used to it and if you don't have any experience with it, it could definitely be kind of frustrating with Zwift, and it can definitely affect your race performance. So all this is really from the moment you start slamming on the pedals to the moment your avatar in Zwift responds to that. It's about a 3-second delay. So the biggest situations where I find that this comes into play is, well, obviously the start in some regard. Secondly, if you're drifting off the back of a pack and you catch yourself and you're like, oh, I gotta keep going. At that point, it's already too late, because you're going to start hammering, and it's going to take 3 seconds before you actually respond to that. So, and in 3 seconds, you can get dropped quite a bit more. So, got to keep that in mind. The other couple of areas where this makes a big difference is at the base of hills. If you're waiting to actually be on the hill before you start hammering it in response to what everybody else is doing around you, you're going to find that you're sliding back in the field very quickly on the early part of that climb, because everybody probably is using that 3-second delay, or they're aware of it. They're getting a jump on it, so that as you go from 0% grade to say 4 or 5%, whatever the climb is, they're already putting out probably 150% more power. They're slamming on the pedals. They're getting a jump on it. So at the start of climbs, this makes a big difference. And then the other instance where it makes a big difference is when you're descending. And a lot of times in a race, you're descending, you're trying to recover, you might be easing off, you might even be coasting, and that talking about last week we talked about the aero tuck. So if you're in the aero tuck and you want to milk that for every last second, by the time it goes from negative whatever, let's say negative 4% to 0%, if you're waiting for that to say 0% before you start slamming on the pedals, you're going to get dropped like a bad habit, because everybody will have been on the pedals pedaling pretty hard, and in that 3 seconds in Zwift's mind, it's like you're coasting as you're coming off that descent, and you'll quickly get dropped. So you want to make sure you're aware of this 3-second delay on the downhills as well. Anything to add to any of those before I talk about the sticky draft, Vivian?
No, I think you nailed it there. It's really anticipation. I think that's probably the rule when it comes to that stuff.
Yep, and anticipation and honestly, just always keeping the pedals going. I don't have any data to back this up, or I've never read anything about this, but it just seems like if you're pedaling, maybe you're just doing 100 watts. You're in such a better position to go from, say, 100 watts. Well, your avatar, let's say, is in such a better position to respond to what's going on around you if you're putting out some power. It seems like if you're coasting and doing 0, then it always seems like it takes like another second or even a couple seconds for your avatar to get going. And I think that frustrates a lot of new Zwift racers, because in the real world they're used to coasting, so they might be coasting a little bit more getting started with the Zwift racing, and then come to find out there's even a more delay if you're going from coasting to slamming on the pedals as hard as you can. In real life it happens quickly. In Zwift it takes seconds. So I have found that even just putting a little bit of power into the pedals, if you're just trying to hang on to the back of a pack, or if you're descending, it makes the reaction time of your avatar much, much, much quicker. So, and then the sticky draft is definitely something something to get used to as well. And if everybody out there has not had a chance to experience this, maybe as you're just riding in Zwift, maybe doing a training ride, or you're just riding, the next time you're on a hill and you start to go under, say, maybe 15 miles an hour, you'll notice it as you come up alongside somebody and you're just going a little bit faster than this person. You're about to pass them slowly. A lot of times your avatar will just kind of stick right into the back of that person. You're putting out the same amount of power, but guess what? You stay right there with that person, and that's the sticky draft. You actually have to actually put out a decent more amount of power to tell Zwift that you want to continue passing this person. And I've read that it's as much as 100 watts, but you got to slam on the pedals a little bit, you break that sticky draft, and then you continue rolling past somebody. It's really apparent on a slower climb, but that same effect is going on in a big pack as you're cruising along at 30 miles an hour. So the main tip that I would tell everybody here is if you're in the back of the pack and you're riding up to the front of the pack, you're probably using more energy than if you just stayed in one spot in the pack. Because what's going on as you're moving through the pack is you very well could be getting stuck to somebody, and then just in the normal course of trying to keep up, you might surge a little bit, and that breaks that draft. You're moving up a little bit more. I would say try to stay in one spot within the pack, even if it's towards the back. That's okay. Try to stay in one spot rather than always sliding up and then to just fade back, pushing up and then to slide back. There has been some testing done, and you can be drafting somebody. You could be in the sticky draft. Say you're cruising along at 30 miles an hour. You could be in somebody's draft pedaling at 270 watts. But guess what? If you dropped it down to say 220, 230 watts, your avatar still stays in the draft, and that's because of that stickiness factor. So obviously, if you can get away with doing less and staying in place, you want to get away with doing less. So just be aware that it takes probably less power than you think to maintain your position in a fast-moving pack. Anything to add to that, Vivian?
No, yeah, I think you covered all the bases there for sure. We have a question, by the way, in the chat asking what our favorite perspective during a race is.
Yeah,
there's a bunch.
There's a bunch of views to enjoy. You can select through them through the either your companion app running in sync with Zwift, or you've got your blue menu bar that you can change it up. I typically go with, I just usually use the traditional view where the camera's behind, but you can see the riders coming up alongside. I went through a couple races where I was actually like true point of view. Like I couldn't see anything of my own avatar, just like straight away view, and that was kind of cool. But I didn't stick with it for whatever reason. I think being able to see like what's going on each side of you and behind is important. What do you use?
I use the default one, and I've messed. There's also the drone setting, which is the 0 key, but you have to like use I think it's the A and the plus or minus to actually adjust the angles and all that stuff. So it's definitely not something that you should, kind of mess around with when you're racing or anything like that. And then point of view to me is definitely cool. But Christian actually pointed this out in his question that he can't see if he's in aero mode and if he's drafting.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good
totally
point.
Agree.
Yeah. If you're in true point of view mode, you can't see if your avatar is tucking or up on the bars to signify drafting. Right. So that's definitely a reason to not use that for sure. Sometimes side note, if I'm doing just an easy endurance ride on Zwift, a lot of times I'll switch to, I think it's view 7 or 8, which is more of like that helicopter view, just because it's a little bit more visually visually appealing. You get to take in a little bit more as you're just cruising at endurance pace. So.
Yep, exactly.
And then we talked about analyzing the course profile, and yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. I think that's all we got. Is there anything else that we should add, Vivian? I think we about covered it.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely stack of information to digest. So, like, seriously, guys, if you have any questions, guys and girls, if you have any questions, like, post them in the chat box. We'd be happy to take them right now.
Yeah, we'll stick around for a couple minutes. Yep. But I would say going forward, if everybody spent a little bit more time checking out on ZwiftPower.com the segments tab and taking a look at all of there's a lot of good stuff there. You can see the breakdown of how fast you've done specific segments in the past. Really is good for setting goals for the future. Like, for instance, I know a lot of you have probably heard about the New York City Velo Club versus CCNS challenge that we've got in a couple of weeks. And what that is it's a bunch of New York City guys have thrown down the gauntlet with us against us, I guess, in a race up Alpe d'Huez. So one of the first things I did was I was like, okay, let's check out like what my best time up Alpe d'Huez was, when that was, what I was doing for power, and that's all possible through that segments tab on Zwift Power.
Right.
Cool. All right. Well, Vivian, thank you so much for joining and for taking the reins there as my internet was lagging behind. But I'll stay on the line for a little bit, and if anybody has any other further questions, that's great. But